Hey! Hey! This is library.
Hello and welcome to Strength for Tomorrow Radio. My name is Stuart Thompson, at least it was the last time I checked. Thank you for joining me on this lovely day. It is a Friday. If you're listening to this in the far distant future, hope everything's well. Hope there's no such thing as coronavirus, and hope there's no other crazy happenings. Anyway, I hope you listened last week. If you didn't, you should need to check it out. Bobby Little was on and he brought us so much wisdom, so many great tips and so much advice and life experience. So do check that one out as well, but not until you've listened to this one, of course. So today we're going to think about strength training and basically how it makes you better at absolutely everything. Now, a few months ago I threw out a challenge on Facebook. I said, strength training makes you better at everything. Agree? Question mark. And of course, whenever you say something like that on social media, you're sort of expecting a reaction, or you're expecting somebody to challenge you. And I wasn't necessarily looking for an argument. I just wanted to make people think, really. So there weren't an awful lot of takers, but you know, I got a few likes, got a few reactions. But one guy jokingly suggested that it might actually make you worse at playing snooker because you'll be too big, too heavy, too muscly, and whenever you try to strike the cue ball, you'll not be able to do it properly because you'll not be flexible enough. But he was joking because we'll clear up this misconception and a lot of other objections to strength training during the course of this show, so do stick around.
How dare you!
I thought it would be good to kick off with a couple of quotes. I do love a quote. Quotes are great, basically because it involves smarter people saying things that I hadn't thought of. But there's often quite a lot of truth to them. People have thought them out well, and we can dissect them. So these two quotes are actually from the same guy called Mark Ripito. You should look him up if you haven't heard of him. But he's some very thought-provoking quotes on strength and its importance for absolutely everybody. The first one is, physical strength is the most important thing in life. This is true whether we want it to be or not. I have a couple of Mark Ripito's books, and he opens one of them with this statement, and at face value it sounds like it's a nice sound bite, but there's nothing really more to it. There's no substance, no truth. But you might immediately respond and say, well, family's more important than physical strength. Mental strength is more important. Kindness is more important. But physical strength is not necessarily referring to being able to lift hundreds of kilos of weight. Physical strength involves you being able to sit up in a chair instead of lying helplessly on a bed. It involves you feeding yourself with a fork or a spoon. It requires more strength than you being fed through a tube or through a straw. Now, you can argue that family is more important, but if you were stripped of every ounce of your strength, you wouldn't be around for long enough to enjoy your family or to be there for them. If you're an amazingly kind person, or you have a fantastic intellect but absolutely no strength, you'll see very quickly that you'll die, and those things will not serve you or anyone else. So put simply, without strength we die. That is the inevitable consequence, and it happens sooner rather than later. So this is why this quote is true, in my opinion. There's more to the quote than meets the eye, and I think you really have to break it down and think hard about it, but once you do, it's very, very hard to argue with. The next quote is, strong people are harder to kill than weak people and more useful in general. Now, I've shared this one on social media before, and it generally gets quite a mixed reception. It's one of those ones, I guess, when you really think about it, it is true, and it might seem offensive or hurtful or not a nice thing to think about, but it also happens to be true. If we think about it from a few angles or scenarios, if an attacker chooses to go after somebody, they're choosing a victim. Do you think they're going to go after the bigger, stronger person as their victim, or do you think they're going to go after the smaller, weaker one if they had the choice? I think they'd have to be an absolute idiot to go after the stronger person, don't you? So the other way to look at it is, if you were to get attacked by a disease or an illness, a stronger person is going to be more likely to last and deal with it a bit better than a weak person. And it's as simple as that. If you are a bigger, stronger person, you're going to be more robust. And if we really stretch the comparison, to the very edges, the very fringes, if a weak person or a strong person was in a car accident, or if they were shot, now common sense would suggest that the stronger person is more likely to come out better, but only just. Now, the quote doesn't say that strong people are invincible or unbreakable. Doesn't mean you can't kill them. It just says they're harder to kill, and put simply, they are more difficult to kill in pretty much every scenario that you or I can think of. If you come up with one, I'll be glad to hear it. But it's pretty much speaks for itself. The next thing, to say that strong people are more useful in general is also true, but again, even if we don't want it to be true, again, it maybe sounds harsh, it maybe sounds quite dismissive and quite discriminatory maybe in some ways, but again, strong people just are able to last longer when they're doing physical activities. They tend to be able to do them more productively, efficiently, and they tend to have stronger minds as well quite often, because they train themselves to do difficult things, to do hard things. They don't shy away from it. They put themselves through hard tasks weekly. So if you're going to move house and you need a friend, come and give you a hand, lift the boxes, lift the furniture. Tell me this, are you going to choose the weaker friend, one of your weak friends, or are you going to choose your big strong friend? And maybe your car breaks down, you need a push. Are you going to choose a guy that's big and strong, stranger, or the guy that's a wee bit weak, a wee bit thin, and a bit smaller? Which one are you going to choose? Now, maybe you will choose the smaller guy, but you're going to have more work to do on your part. If the other guy can't lift or can't push as much as you're going to be bearing most of the load. But don't confuse this quote as saying that weaker people are useless or lazy or bad people. It doesn't say that, so don't read into it. It simply says that stronger people are, in general, more useful. And if you think about it and break it down, scenario after scenario makes this pretty obvious, even if it does hurt our feelings. And the next question is, how do we get strong? Well, we do so through strength training.
How dare you!
Okay, so what are some of the benefits of weight training? I think we all know you get stronger. That's the most obvious one, but there's countless studies now that have shown us the benefits of strength training. It improves athletic performance, building stronger, denser bones, relieving symptoms of anxiety, symptoms of depression, maintaining muscle mass, brain health in old age, and lowering mortality risk for pretty much any cause. There's studies to back up each of these claims, and I'll try and link as many as I can in the description to this episode, but those are just some of the things. These are all great reasons to lift weights and to train, and they can be motivating reasons, like, other than merely trying to have a pleasing aesthetic physique. If you're trying to improve how your body looks, feels, there's lots of other reasons as well, and we'll delve into some of them a little bit later on. But if you're an athlete, strength training improves your performance, whatever your sport is. Okay, so if you're a runner, if you're a cyclist, if you're a swimmer, if you're a gymnast, if you're whatever you do, if you're playing a field, if you play Gaelic football, rugby, American football, whatever it is, tennis, anything that you can play, it's going to improve your performance. If you're an elderly person, strength training can help you stay strong and more energetic and more mobile and have better balance, better coordination, and all these things help you prevent falls. It'll keep your brain healthy, keep it working, and help you make better decisions. And if you're young, middle-aged, male, female, lifting weights can basically give you something beyond just health and appearance. It gives you confidence. It builds mental resilience. It gets you used to doing tough things and progressively getting better at it. So basically everybody can benefit from getting stronger. So if we think even just a little bit more about sport, how does it improve you at your sport? If you play golf's quite popular, especially this time of year. Strength training is going to improve your swing, it's going to improve your power, your force production, it's going to give you added stability, you're going to be more balanced, and it's going to give you more rotational strength as well. if you can squat like 150 kilos for 5 reps in your back, if you're a guy or more, if you can squat heavy, it's going to give you all sorts of benefits. Driving that ball is going to make it's just going to be so much easier. Now, you're still going to have to increase your skill, and this goes for any sport, this goes for any discipline that's specific, a learned skill set. You can't just go, right, I'm going to stop practicing golf now and take up strength training to get better at golf. It doesn't work like that. What I'm saying is, if you're a stronger guy or girl, you're going to be able to play golf better. Okay, it's going to add to your performance. It's not going to detract from your performance. So if you're serious about your golf, or you just want to beat your mates, you should be strength training. Snooker as well, because if you can get below parallel in a squat, by being able to achieve that position, having the required ankle mobility, the sufficient hip mobility, the sufficient core strength, the sufficient shoulder stability and mobility to get into the position to put the bar on your back. This is just a squat we're talking about, haven't got any other exercises. Then you're going to be able to get into awkward positions on the snooker table and whack the ball basically, and you're going to have more control over your levers. Now, I don't want to talk about too much about snooker because there's probably a lot of people listening that are serious about their snooker. Cricket, again, it's not a really popular sport, but it's going to improve that as well. If you bat, you're going to be able to get a lot more power through it. You're going to be faster. Your reactions are potentially going to be a little bit quicker as well. You're going to be able to have more power when you're running, throwing. So both ways it's going to improve. I'm not a cricketer by any means, but I'm trying to apply the benefits of strength training to each of these. And I challenge you to try it. Same with soccer or football, rugby, Gaelic, hurling, even tennis. So take the team sports first of all. So, soccer, rugby, Gaelic, hurling, all of those things involve running, they involve jumping, they involve throwing, they involve landing. All of those things are going to benefit from you being stronger. And strength is something that everybody can train. We're all genetically gifted to some capacity. We all have different levels of ability, but we can all train. We can all get better from where we are currently, and that's the point. If you're a soccer player, if you're a football player, a rugby player, Gaelic player, hurling player, and you want to be faster, you should be trying to do some strength because it's going to be easier. You're also going to last longer in the game. You're going to stay stronger for longer in the game. You're not going to suddenly just succumb to fatigue. If you have to look at rugby players. They obviously know that strength training is going to help them. That's probably a more obvious one. Gaelic, I guess a lot of guys are getting more into weight training now, and same with hurling. Soccer, I guess a lot of guys are still just think, we just need to run, sprint. Sprinting, of course, is going to help. That's generally what's involved, but so is strength is going to make it feel a lot easier. Tennis as well, so you're shifting weight, balancing, taking off, stopping, starting. You're going to improve your serve. You've got a stronger shoulder if you're doing overhead pressing, if you're doing bench pressing, if you're doing pull-ups. Those are things that are going to help your serve. You're going to be able to just strike the ball back with more power past your opponent if you've got a stronger shoulder, stronger wrist, stronger forearm. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that strength is going to make all of these sports easier. And the same goes with the more basic disciplines: running, cycling, swimming, rowing. If you are involved in any of those sports and you're not doing strength training, you're probably just pissing about, to be honest. You're probably just messing. You're not really taking it too seriously, which is fair enough. If you don't want to take it seriously, that is absolutely fine. What I'm saying is that if you take up strength training, it's going to improve your running. You're going to get faster. You're going to last longer in the race. A lot of runners, cyclists, swimmers and rowers shun strength training because they believe erroneously that it involves putting on weight. We're going to deal with that a little bit later on. But basically, it does not have to mean that you have to put on more weight to get stronger, but it will improve you. So why do you think people get injured running? A lot of time it's to do with form breakdown. A lot of times to do with repetitiveness. So if you're constantly pounding the tarmac or the concrete, or whatever it is you're running on, a lot of time you get injured later on in the race. You get injured later on in the distance. If you're running a 10k, it's probably when you get into kilometers 8, 9, and 10, that's when you start picking up little niggles and knocks and injuries. If you are stronger, if your hips are stronger, if your glutes, hamstrings, quads are stronger, if your core is stronger, guess what? You're going to be able to last longer in the race, and you're going to be able to see it through without fatiguing as easily. Now, aerobic capacity is slightly different, and because you are running for quite a long time, you're going to have to build an engine from that perspective. But strength training is still going to benefit you. Same with cycling. Cycling is going to involve repetitive movement over and over again. And if you've got a higher power output, if you've got more force production, if you can squat and deadlift, 150, 200 kilos, 250 kilos, whatever, if you can do that, guess what? You're going to get better at cycling. Same goes with swimming. If you've got better shoulders, better legs, stronger legs, you're going to be able to get more power out of every stroke, out of every kick and every stroke of your arms. And the same with rowing. If you can drive through your legs more powerfully, you're going to be able to get more out of each row each time you put the oars in. So whether that is in a row and erg, maybe you just like doing that, or if you're actually on the water, you're going to be better at it. And the same goes with any discipline. Like we said, it involves jumping, landing, or throwing, sprinting, all the kind of basic human movements. If you are stronger, those things get easier. Okay, hopefully that's going in. I don't want to go into too much detail in it, about it, but we can do. If you want any follow up on all of this, we will get there. But I want to just give you those things to think about. Now, you might not take my word for it. I don't think until you try these things, if you're involved in the sport, until you try it for yourself, do a 12-week program, do a strength training program, and try and get your deadlift, your squat, your bench press, your overhead press, get those things up, get stronger at them, and then try and see. You'll notice it. You'll notice it immediately. Okay, as your strength goes up, you'll notice your performance will increase. I have had runners in the past. I've had cyclists training with me. And even though they weren't able to get out running and cycling and swimming actually as well, they weren't able to do those things as regularly as they wanted to. What they found was, because they were continuing with strength training 2 or 3 times a week, they were surprised at how easily they were able to get back into those sports, those disciplines, having not done them for several months. Now, if they had taken off from doing those things other times, but not done strength training, they said themselves that they would be way behind. They would feel so arduous and laborious. So that's another reason. That's another example, actually, of how strength training can help you. Now, it should be obvious to most of us that being stronger is a better option than being weaker. Okay, if you're given the choice, if you had to choose, I think most of us would choose to be stronger. I'm not sure anyone who is in their right mind would say, no, I'd like to be a little bit weaker. I think that would be a better option. No, we would all choose to be stronger. And the fact is, most of us do have the choice. Most of us have the option to try and get stronger. Now, it does take work, it does take discipline, and it does take a lot of effort and consistent effort. But we all pretty much have a choice with what we want to do with it. So not many people maybe want to hear about the hard work and the consistency and the dedication that's required to achieve strength, and I mean real strength. And there's even fewer that do it for the right reasons, probably. There's actually a study from the CDC from January to September of 2017, and this is Americans, but 23.7% of American adults between the ages of 18 to 64 met the government's guidelines of aerobic and muscle strengthening activities during their leisure time. So the data doesn't seem to understand that if one also factors in physical activity whenever you're working, because let's be honest, most people's jobs these days are not very strenuous. The most physical thing we tend to do is picking up a stapler or a piece of paper if it's fallen on the floor. But the data is quite distressing. But it does tell us something. For one thing, if you probably shouldn't look to the government for fitness advice. I think the last year, if the last year's taught us anything, it's you don't ask the government for fitness advice because they don't know what they're talking about. To call their guidelines vague is an understatement. It's also not only vague, it's inaccurate, it's out of date, and it's so out of touch with reality. So another part is our culture is so saturated with fitness advice, mostly bad fitness advice, and yet for some reason, well, this is again American. 40% of Americans are obese, and the UK is not far behind that, and the majority are sedentary. So, what is going on? What is the reason for that? I think one of the major reasons that people don't stick to a program whenever, often they actually, they don't know what they're doing, and there's no accountability. They'll go for a wee scoot around machines. I think I dealt with this in an earlier episode talking about personal responsibility, but the way gyms are set up, it's basically a cost cutting exercise. It's trying to stick in machines that people can't hurt themselves on, read the instructions, do the leg press, do the leg extension, do these things. There's no idea how many reps you should do. There'll be maybe a wee sticker on the thing that'll tell you, do this for hypertrophy, do this for strength, do this for toning. And it's nonsense. Like, I just want to tell you that it's nonsense. But the point is, they don't really know what they're doing, and there's no accountability. So they just show up to the gym, get a pump, tick the box, tell people that went to the gym today, whether it did them any good or not, whether they got much out of it or not, and maybe see a little bit of results. They'll see some changes, because a lot of time, if you're completely untrained and you do anything, if you haven't done anything before and you start doing something, you will get some sort of a change, hopefully, but maybe not as effective or not as much as what you would hope for the effort you put in. And then a lot of them just tend to quit, or they get stuck doing the same thing and never really improve, and then you get bored, and then you just go, what's the point? There's no difference if I don't do this. You get bored of the 3 sets of 10 of curls, bro curls. And the other thing is, whenever strength increases, whenever you've been doing a lot of the big compound movements, and I talk about these all the time, squats, deadlifts, presses, bench press, pull-ups, muscle mass is essentially more efficiently distributed across the entire body, across your whole physique from top to toe. So this gives you a really good solid foundation of strength, and it makes you more neurologically efficient. So as well as muscle mass, if you're a guy, which you can, later shape to your heart's content. So people think you're going to put on muscle really easily. It doesn't happen easily. It takes a lot of the right factors in place to make that happen, and generally it happens a lot easier for guys than girls, but still does not happen by accident. But some guys want to shape their arms, shape their legs, shape their chest, and bodybuilders are especially good at doing things like that. Now, it's not the most healthy pastime in the world being a bodybuilder, but if that's what your dream is, you're probably better building a bit of strength first of all, and then lay the foundation on that. But whether you're wanting to climb the stairs, get out of bed, get up off the floor, play a musical instrument, do the ironing, the mopping, hoovering, playing with the kids or the grandkids maybe, lifting them up, throwing them in the air, carrying them up the stairs, lifting them up out of the car seat, pushing a pram, maybe you have to lift the dog into the boot or into the back seat, walking the dog. Whatever it is you're doing in everyday life, strength is required to some degree. There are so many areas that are much, much easier if you happen to be stronger. Now, there's not much travelling going on these days, but even if you're going to the airport, you've got a suitcase to haul about. Whenever travel was enjoyable in the good old days, I remember the good old days, you pick up your suitcase. Now, a lot of them with wheels given, but you still have to put them up onto the little belt, don't you? What if you overcooked it a wee bit and you've put too much in it? What about putting your hand luggage into the overhead compartment above? It's not right making the air steward or hostess or stewardess put it in the overhead. I don't know what's politically correct these days, but you know who I'm talking about. It's not right making them put that in the overhead compartment. Do it yourself if you can, and you should be able to. Okay, so there's so many areas in life that it's we just need strength, and funnily enough, as we age, we get weaker. Every year we get that little bit weaker, and we need to do something about it. So unless we're actively doing something about it, we're going to eventually succumb to it, to the point where we have to ask somebody a little bit younger, a little bit stronger, to put something in the overhead compartment for us, or to pick that up for us, or to carry something for us. And while some people might be okay with that, I know a lot of you out there are quite independent and you want to maintain that. And if you do want to maintain it, my suggestion is to do some strength training. Now, there's lots of other areas that strength training is going to benefit you. But first of all, I want to clear up some common misconceptions about strength training. So a lot of people assume that lifting weights has a higher rate of injury compared to other fitness, inverted commas, alternative, like running or boot camps. A lot of people think that weight training is dangerous and it has a very high injury rate. The reality is very, very different. Repetitive exercises and activities like running, cycling, even body weight exercises like boot camps and things, they actually involve they actually are a lot more likely to cause you an injury than lifting 5 heavy reps of a squat or a deadlift. Why is this? Well, for one thing, you tend to pay more attention whenever you're getting yourself under a very heavy barbell to squat, or you're about to pick something very, very heavy up off the floor. You're much more aware of the risk. So if you get it wrong, so you concentrate that bit more, you take it a lot more seriously, and you brace yourself accordingly. So you're a lot more aware of your technique, basically. And another reason for this is, do you think you're more likely to get injured from performing hundreds of strides or repetitions as you do for running, for example, or from 5 repetitions? Which do you think? So the law of averages suggests you're going to mess up more times during a 1 hour run than 3 sets of 5 reps of heavy deadlifts. But if you talk to any marathon runner or half marathon runner, or anybody who just likes running and they're a little bit addicted to it perhaps, they'll likely be carrying some sort of a knock or a niggle, and they just can't shift it. And even those who run 5Ks or 10Ks tend to have some sort of an ache or a pain all the time. And listen, most of them are ibuprofen before they even get to the start line. And I'm not having a go. I've trained lots of them. They're phenomenal people in many ways, but I'm just pointing something out. I'm sure it's really frustrating, but I kind of understand why they would put themselves through something like that. It is an addictive activity. It can get very addictive, and the sooner you admit that, the better. But hopefully you can see that weight training is not a high risk activity. You lift weights that are appropriate for your ability. Okay, so the next time you lift a little bit heavier. If you start off going like a madman or a madwoman at weights that are not appropriate for you, yes, you're going to increase your chances of injury. But it's a bit like saying that driving is more dangerous than bike riding. Well, if that's true if you've just passed your test and then you decide to go at like 150 miles per hour around a country road. It's only risky if you take it to extremes, but whenever we're not really equipped to do so. So no, weight training does not have a high injury rate, and it is also not dangerous. Another really common misconception and downright lie is that weight training makes you big and bulky. So this one has been around for a long time, too long, longer than I've been alive probably, and that's saying something. But I still encounter people who believe it, who avoid weight training because of it, and even people who really should know better. So there are lots of guys who maybe you watch The World's Strongest Man, or they know some incredibly huge rugby friend who's an absolute powerhouse, but also happens to be carrying a bit more excess fat than what most people would like. So they look at him and they think, the reason they're carrying more fat is because they did strength training. Okay, so because they're really strong, somehow the two go hand in hand. But I can promise you it wasn't the lifting of the weights which caused him to put on the extra fat. It was probably the lifting of beers, lifting of donuts, chocolate, crisps, pretty much anything they wanted. Basically extra calories that caused it. Now, because they've been in a calorie surplus, it has actually helped them to build more strength and more muscle, because it's in those conditions that muscles can get stronger and recover better from the training. But it's not synonymous with getting stronger. Okay, what I'm saying is it is possible to get stronger without eating terribly, without eating like a child and eating whatever you want. You can still get your calories up appropriately, get your protein up appropriately, and get stronger for a good while, and you'll not put on body fat. Okay, so I'm talking to guys here specifically. So put it this way: if you weigh 80 kilos and you're say 5'10" at the moment, and you're not training at all, So in your first session, maybe you can squat 40 kilos for 5 reps, you can bench press 30 kilos for 5 reps, and you can deadlift 50 kilos for 5 reps. Then you start strength training, and you keep your calorie intake pretty much the same, whatever that is, maybe 2,000 calories a day. So maybe you could actually stay the same weight, okay, and you could bring your squat up to say 120 kilos, your bench press to 80 kilos, and your deadlift maybe up to 150 kilos, all while staying at that exact same weight. Now, I'm not talking nonsense. This is true, and I've seen it happen. Now, during the process, your body shape might change. So if you're a guy, you'll probably get a more defined, bigger chest. You get bigger shoulders, stronger shoulders, wider shoulders. You'll get chunkier legs, perhaps, glutes, all the rest of it. If you're a girl, you're probably just gonna get a lot more toned and a lot more defined. But you'll notice your body shape changing for the better, guys and girls, in spite of the weight staying the same. So even if you keep your calories the exact same as what you were doing, that made you 80 kilos when you're 5'10", then you're not gonna change that weight. Okay, the calories is gonna be the key thing. So your waist might actually shrink and get tighter because you're expending more calories and you're working hard your core muscles. You might find everything's tightening up and getting firmer and harder. Your arms will most likely get harder and more defined. Like I said, your shoulders, back, legs, chest, all of that will improve in their appearance as well, but your weight still hasn't changed. So why is this? Like I said, it's down to calories in versus calories out. So if you're having whatever 2,000 calories per day, don't take that as gospel, by the way. That that's a relative amount. Make it relevant to you. It is down to calories in, calories out. Now, if you're trying to get stronger and stronger and stronger, say you don't really give a toss of what your body looks like or what size your waist is or what weight you are, there does come a point where if you wanted to get stronger and keep getting stronger and push things up further, and say you wanted to bring your deadlift up to 250 kilos as opposed to 150 kilos, now you might have to start eating a lot more to start making extra strength gains. Okay, but there's a way to do this correctly, and there are a lot of ways to do it incorrectly. Basically, the point is most people can keep their weight basically the same, or even lose a bit of weight if you're carrying a bit too much at the start, while strength training for the first 12 months, 6 months, and you're still going to get stronger, fitter, and leaner and healthier. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is everybody has potential to get stronger at their current body weight without making the scales go up, but it will likely improve your physique. Okay, and I'll actually give you a really recent example of this. So I had a client recently who just started doing heavy sets of 3, heavy squats, heavy deadlifts, heavy bench press, and she was able to drop 1.5 kilos in 4 weeks. She brought her body fat percentage down by over 1.5%, and she also shrunk her waist by about 1.5 inches. So that was just in 4 weeks, and she didn't do any cardio, she didn't do any running, no HIIT, nothing like that, and she was able to do all of that just from lifting heavy weights. So that's a real life example. So, what more do you want me to say? I'll give you lots more examples if you want to. I can go through, but this is just one that's sprung up in the last week or so. Another, I guess you could call it lie, is that lifting weights is only for younger people. So quite often you do see a lot of younger people in the gym, more so now there are older people, but I hear a lot of older people who come to me for training and they say they feel a bit intimidated. There's a lot of younger guys and they're snorting and grunting and doing dear knows what in the corner as they're lifting, and they feel a bit intimidated. They feel like they don't belong there, and that's an awful feeling if you feel like you shouldn't be there with the younger guys. But it's particularly disappointing lie because it also happens to be untrue, as well as dangerous. Now, maybe not as dangerous as, Robin Swan. We'll say nothing more about that. But yeah, so young people do typically, they want to do weights. So there's all sorts of reasons. Many want to improve their physique. They want to look better. Strength training is a surefire way to do that. Many want to build muscle I guess because a lot of younger people, they tend to be thinner and more bony and leaner. They don't have as much muscle mass on, especially guys. As we get older, we tend to get a bit chunkier. Let's be honest. If anything, the issue is trying to keep off unwanted weight. Young people also tend to compete in more sports, so rugby, football, Gaelic, you name it. And being stronger, like we've said above, makes you better at those sports than you otherwise would be if you did not do strength training. However, just because young people tend to be attracted to strength training, it doesn't mean that it's only for young people. I think that needs to be made clear. Or, there's something about young people's bodies that make it only appropriate for them to do it rather than older people. So whether you're 25 or 85, we all benefit from the exact same process. Okay, so stress, appropriate stress, recovery, adaptation, over and over again. Now, the extent that we benefit from this, I guess it varies with age. Okay, but whenever you're younger, you're in your 20s, your late teens, especially if you're a guy, you're going to have a higher rate of testosterone. You've got lots of human growth hormone flowing through you, so you're going to respond a lot better than if you're 70s or 80s. You're not going to, react. You're not going to expect to put on the same amount of muscle mass. It is still possible to put on muscle and to build strength if you're an older gentleman or an older lady. It's possible to get stronger, but not to the same extent. Okay, that will vary with age. Now, we all react the exact same way, just varying degrees, like I said. And like I've said on other podcasts, not only do muscles get stronger whenever you do strength training, but so do bones, so do tendons, and so do ligaments. They adapt, they get stronger. Bones, ligament, tendons getting stronger is particularly important if you're older. Why? Well, because they tend to get weaker unless we do something about it. So unless we're proactive about it, we're going to start getting weaker. And that, like we said in the osteoporosis episode, that starts to happen for bones in your 30s. You're going to start to get weaker, and you're going to start to get more brittle bones. Another one you often hear, maybe you're an older person and you've heard this, that older people should be doing lighter weights and more reps. And maybe you've realised, actually, maybe I should be doing a bit of strength training. And maybe you've seen this on the internet, maybe you've seen this on social media, maybe somebody has told you this, meaning well, but this is another fallacy, and it's been perpetuated and it's gathered pace to the point where no one even questions it anymore. Older people, like I said, they get stronger from the exact same process. So if you're a grandparent, you get stronger through the exact same process as your kids and your grandkids. Okay, stress, recovery, and adaptation over and over and over again. And strength, how is it measured? It's measured by the amount of force you can apply to an external resistance. Okay, so strength is measured by the amount of force you can apply to an external resistance. So you get stronger by increasing the external resistance that you ask your body to apply the force to. Does that make sense? So for example, on a Monday, say you're able to do bodyweight squats. Okay, you've mastered that. You can do nice bodyweight squats. Say by Wednesday, you add a couple of kilos. I'm talking if you're in your 80s here, okay? So you add a couple of kilos and you're able to do some squats holding a weight. That is the process of stress recovery and adaptation in real life. Okay, that's it. In practice, that's what it looks like. So doing lots and lots of reps with lighter weights, it does not do this. It cannot achieve strength. Now, doing lots of reps, with lighter weights, what it will do is increase muscle endurance and stamina, but not strength. Okay, so you'll have more muscle endurance and more stamina. It's requiring a particular adaptation from your muscle. So it's a completely different goal than what you want to achieve. If you're looking to do strength training, do strength training. Okay, so older people, unless you're going to do like a marathon or a mountain climb or something that's going to be repetitive and for a long period of time, you do not need more muscle endurance or stamina. You need strength. Okay, you need to increase or regain strength, not muscle endurance or stamina. Why do you need strength? Well, you need it for stability, coordination, balance, and to prevent things like falls, help you get up off the toilet yourself, to navigate the stairs, to get out of the chair without asking for help or having to shift back and forward and struggling to get up. Okay, doing millions of body weight squats or leg extensions or things like that is not going to do it. Okay, if you're using machines, you need to be able to lift heavy, and then lift a little bit heavier the next time you try it, and a little bit heavier the next time you try it, and through this process you're going to get stronger. So forget the idea, less weight, more reps. If you're older, you do it the exact same way as somebody who's in their 20s. Now, there might be some adaptations you need to make to either the equipment, because mobility can be an issue, but doing lots and lots of reps is not the answer. Another thing you might have come across is the idea that doing machines is a safer way to get strong. So a lot of people are quite risk averse. They don't like taking risk. But do you know why machines were invented in the first place? Well, a cynical mind might say for money, but I'm sure inventors had an awful lot of other reasons as well. I'm sure some of them were really well intentioned and they thought this is a superior way to train the body. This is a superior way to get stronger. But there probably are a few reasons why machines exist. The one that springs to my mind is that because greedy gym owners who don't really care that much about their either employees or their gym members, they don't care if they make progress, they don't care if they get fitter, stronger, they don't care. All they really care about is avoiding an insurance claim. They love an insurance, and there's probably an American company that came up with them. There's probably an American gym. Just throwing that out there, not to be a bit prejudiced, but you love a claim, don't you, in America? Everyone loves a claim in America. It's getting like that here, unfortunately, but all they care about is not having any lawsuits. They don't want any claims. They don't want any insurance payouts. And, at the risk of their membership, okay, they don't want their members getting stronger because there is a risk attached with it. Now, they can basically pay an employee minimum wage, an unqualified employee, might add, minimum wage or less. Minimum wage probably wasn't even about whenever these machines were invented. But they can do gym inductions with gym members. They can sit at a desk. They can read the instructions on the machines and let them fire away. There's no training, there's no coaching. There's really nothing can go wrong. You just sit there and, press your legs or, extend your legs or do the curls in the machine or do the pec deck, whatever it is you're doing. Now, a lot of people look at barbells and think, well, they have to be a lot safer than a barbell, like a bench press, a squat, or a deadlift, or an overhead press, or even pull-ups. They have to be a lot safer because nothing can go wrong. They're attached to cables. There's safety mechanisms in place. It's not like free weights where something could fall on you. Nobody wants a barbell to the cranium, do they? Let's be honest. That would be a very bad day. But that's kind of the point, is that it's too safe. And what do I mean by that? I don't mean that it's a good thing to get injured. That's never a good thing. Apart from it never teaches you a valuable lesson and you don't do it again. But if you're doing a barbell or you're doing dumbbells, what happens is you have to stabilize the weight yourself. Whenever you're doing anything with a machine, with a cable or whatever, anything that's machine based, it's an artificial way to build strength. So it's not proper strength you're building. You're probably going to have quite a lot of joint instability. You're training in an artificial way. So what I mean by that is you cannot translate that into real life. If you have to ever do anything or apply strength in real life, it's not going to translate. If you are playing sport and you're looking to get a competitive advantage from your strength, you're not going to have the hip stability, you're not going to have the knee mobility, you're not going to have the ankle mobility, shoulder mobility and stability, all of those things. You're not going to get those the same way that you would get from barbell training or free weight training in general. Barbells is the best way to build strength, so that's why I keep referring to barbells. So if you're lacking shoulder stability, guess what happens? You're probably going to pick up shoulder injuries. If you're lacking hip stability, you're probably going to start picking up hip injuries. So it's like putting a really strong engine on a car that doesn't have the chassis or the suspension to be able to cope with it. You're probably going to get into trouble sooner or later. If you're a mechanic listening to this, that probably makes sense to you. If you don't know anything about cars, maybe not going to make sense to you. But hopefully you do get my drift. You're building artificial strength in a way that you cannot manage it. Okay, you don't have the stability to manage it. So I would argue that doing machines is not a safer way to get strong. Barbells are quite simply the best way to get strong. Okay, they're superior to dumbbells, because if you ever tried getting 50 kilo dumbbells up to do some presses with, or you've ever tried squatting with 50 kilo dumbbells, holding them in your arms, it's quite difficult, as you can imagine. So that's why the barbell, look, it's a very basic tool. It's a straight piece of steel. That's very strong steel. It's high tensile, and it doesn't really move very much. But why reinvent the wheel? A lot of people have tried to reinvent the wheel. They've tried to come up with all these ridiculous machines. And you go into any commercial gym now, and you'll see all these machines. I'm always fascinated, because I'm just like, what does that one do? And people are like, do you not know you're a personal trainer? Do you not know? And I'm like, I have no idea, because they come out with a new one every year. And to me, they're a terrible use of your time. All you need is a barbell. If you're, you can't go home, set up a little bit of a station in your home and set up 20 odd machines to train your adductors and your abductors, these little things. Get a couple of bands, get a couple of things if you want to do a bit of activation, but you're not going to build strength in those things, and you're not going to build meaningful real strength in real terms using machines all the time. Now, you might be able to want to use them for accessory movements. I've no real problem with that, but you see a lot of people are using the leg extension machines and almost boasting about how much they can use in the leg extension machine, or how much the leg press. A good example I always give is, if you have a guy who trains and say he can leg press 400 kilos, okay, and he's really proud of this lift, you get him in the gym and you say, okay, come here, over here and squat 200 kilos. Oh, no, I couldn't do that. I couldn't squat 200 kilos. My squat's, it's 150 or 120 or whatever. I don't really train squat that often. But say if you have somebody who can squat 200 kilos, I guarantee you they'll be able to leg press 400 kilos, having never done it before. Okay, so one works one way, but it doesn't necessarily work the other way. Okay, so if you develop enough strength to be able to squat 200 kilos in your back, which would be phenomenal, that's a crazy amount of weight, fair play to you if you can, you'll be able to do 400 kilos leg press. But my question would be, why would you waste your time doing leg press 400 kilos whenever you got a 200 kilo squat? And likewise, I'm asking the person who can leg press 400 kilos, why you waste your time leg pressing 400 kilos when you could be training your squat, and it would translate into other areas and be more beneficial. Something else that we should touch upon is the idea that you don't need to lift weights to get stronger. So maybe you've heard that before. Maybe people use gymnasts as an example. Look at those guys, look what they can do. So look at, they're strong. You don't need to do weights to get stronger. You just do body weight. You can do calisthenics. You can do those sort of things to get stronger. Now, they are correct up to a point, but if you ever watch a gymnastic routine, if you watch the guys in the rings, the pommel horse, or any of those fantastic spectacles, those amazing achievements that they're able to do on those instruments, it lasts about a minute. So they're on that thing for about a minute. Now, a minute, that requires muscle endurance and muscle stamina, like we were referred to earlier. That's strength in a sense, but they're still lifting their body weight. They're not lifting anything else. And like we said before, strength is the idea of applying force to an external resistance. So you get stronger by increasing that external resistance and then applying force to it. And the recovery of stress, recovery adaptation, that process over and over again, means you're getting stronger. So if you literally can't do anything, I'm talking about you just get off the couch and you can't do a push-up, or you can't do a pull-up, or you can't do a bodyweight squat, or you can't do a lunge, then yes, you can get stronger by training bodyweight progression, so you get stronger. Now, that's up to a point. After a while, your body weight's your body weight, unless you start adding weight and you start putting on weight intentionally, just so you can lift yourself and do more pull-ups and things, then you're not going to get any stronger. Now, some people will say, well, how strong should I be? Should I just be able to lift body weight? Well, you can do, but it's not going to be that beneficial to you whenever you start losing weight. You're going to be then, if you're lighter, you're only going to be able to lift your own body weight. So you need to lose weight. So you need to increase weight to some extent somehow. So whether that's using a barbell, kettlebells, dumbbells, or whatever, you're going to have to apply weight somewhere along the line. Some people use weighted vests, but it's still weight. You need extra weight. You need extra weight to be able to get stronger. You need an increased external resistance. Okay, so the idea that you don't need to lift weights to get stronger, all you need to do is body weight stuff, that is a fallacy. It's not true. After you've mastered, you can do 10 push-ups, after you can do 10 bodyweight squats, what next? And to be honest with you, unless you're really, really overweight, you're probably better doing some weights first so you can help get your weight down before you start trying to lift your heavy body weight. Whenever you're very heaviest, this is another side note, you should be doing lots and lots of walking, and you should be doing some strength training as well to try and burn lots of calories. But walking is going to be your best friend. If you're at your top end heaviest, if you are 150 kilos or 120 kilos, you're something really heavy, whenever you start out trying to make a change, walking is going to be your best friend, okay? But if you try and do a push-up, you're almost certainly going to fail. If you're going to try and do a lunge, you're almost certainly going to fail, and you're probably going to hurt yourself in the process. So, that's where using weights comes in, and it's really beneficial. So if you are really overweight, getting yourself into some sort of shape is a good idea first. So doing that primarily through nutrition. So hopefully that sums up some of the reasons why the title of this episode is called Strength Training Makes You Better at Everything. So I think it's just in this crazy busy world, it's the most efficient use of your time as well whenever it comes to selecting an exercise. Everybody nowadays say they're so busy, it was a really busy week, I just don't have time for anything. And I think it's the best possible choice if you are pushed for time, if you don't have 6 or 7 hours to commit to cardio a week or committing to other things. But it's also going to benefit you in lots of other areas. It translates into other areas. For example, if you do strength training correctly and you're building a good amount of strength, you're going to burn a similar amount of calories per workout if you compare it to steady state cardio like running, cycling, swimming, rowing, or even things like HIIT or boot camps. And if you don't believe me, just try it. I dare you to try it. Try lifting a heavy set of 5 and make it heavy enough that you could not do a 6th or 7th rep. Then you'll know, you might know then what I'm talking about. The other reason, is similar to HIIT. It also increases your metabolism. Okay, so you're getting a surge, your heart rate's flying up whenever you do a heavy set. Your heart rate flies up and then it drops whenever you stop your set. Okay, so whenever you drive that up, it helps to increase your metabolism. So basically, unlike steady state cardio, which burns a significant amount of calories, you burn quite a lot. If you went for an hour run, you'd burn a lot of calories during that hour whenever you're actually performing it. But you virtually get no extra benefit from a calorie burn perspective after you've stopped. And everybody's all fascinated about calorie burning these days. The easiest way, I'm going to let you in a little secret, is to manage your calories correctly by how many you consume. But if that's what you're worried about, you're able to burn more calories at rest after you stop working out by doing weight training, similar to HIIT. So you get a similar benefit from it as well as HIIT. And then obviously, as the name suggests, strength training builds strength, like we just said. It's important for everything, from getting out of bed in the morning, getting better at your sport, being able to play musical instruments, to brushing your teeth at night, getting out of a chair. Strength is important, and we only realise that as we get older. You will realise how important strength is and how you can't really do very much without it. Okay, just because we don't like getting older doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Another reason is whenever you've built significant strength, it lasts a lot longer than any conditioning you acquire from doing other activities like running, cycling, or just boot camps and HIIT classes. Your aerobic capacity will decrease significantly faster than if you stopped strength training. So if you did strength training for a few years and you stop it for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, you're going to be further ahead than if you'd never started it before. So some people think, I lost all my strength and back to square one. You're absolutely not. If you've built your squat or your deadlift up, let's say 120 kilo squat and 150 kilo deadlift, if you've built your lifts up to that amount and then you take 3 or 4 months off, doesn't mean that you're going to be starting back to the exact same weight that you started off. You'll probably be maybe 50% down, maybe 30-40% down, but generally you'll be a lot further ahead. Why is that? Because it lasts longer. Okay, it lasts into for years as well. If you're training hard in your 20s and 30s, it's like putting money in the bank. Now I'm no financial advisor, but I do understand the concept of compound interest. So if you put money in the bank, maybe not the bank, interest crap these days. If you put it into stocks and shares, ISA, let's say, and you put a little bit, drip feed it in every single month, and you get a few percent interest every month or every year on it. Every year you're compounding the interest, so you make interest on the interest on the interest every single year. And it's a bit like that with strength training. The more money you put in the bank, the more training hours you put in, the harder you work and the more strength you build up, the better you're going to be in your retirement, put it that way. And if you're a guy, along with proper nutrition, that will increase muscle mass, it'll add size, it'll add shape, it'll add definition to all the right areas. Bigger shoulders, bigger arms, bigger legs, bigger chest. And if you're a lady, strength training is going to define you, shape you, and firm you in all the areas that ladies like to be defined in, providing that sensible nutrition is followed. So that goes for both guys and girls, okay? So I guess ladies like the thighs, glutes, those are the areas that we like to kind of increase size and shape in. They will firm those areas. Shoulders, we like our arms toned, all those sort of things. For guys and girls, it tones, it strengthens, it does all of those things. It defines them, adds definition, and nutrition, I think we said before, is the difference maker. So if you're doing strength training, you're going to benefit from all of that from a physical and a aesthetic point of view. Not only does it strengthen your muscles, like we said above, but it also strengthens your ligaments, tendons, and your bones. And the same cannot be said for running or swimming or cycling or rowing or HIIT or any of these other options, at least not to the same extent. Yes, there's an argument for running and some low impact exercise like skipping. That little bit of impact is going to help densify your bones, but strength training can be done in a more managed way, so you can add the weight gradually and you can adapt more gradually than those other ones. And also the sky's the limit when it comes to strength. When it comes to those other ones, you're going to run into a wall sooner or later. So if you've got a busy lifestyle, strength training, I think, is the best use of your time. It's the most efficient use of your time, and you probably don't need to do any more than 3 times a week. If you're doing it every other day, like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday for an hour, you're going to make incredible progress. You're going to get really, really strong in 3 months or 6 months. You're going to get really, really strong, and you're going to notice it physically as well. So hopefully it will clear up some of the common arguments or common misconceptions and outright lies that are involved when we think of strength training.
Haters will hate always. That's what they do. They hate.
And now it's time for some frequently asked questions. So this week's frequently asked questions are quite relevant to what we've just been discussing. First one is, what is the best type of squat? So if you're not aware, there are quite a lot of squat variations out there. There are as many as the grains of sand on the beach, you could say. There's low bar squatting, there's high bar squatting, there's front squatting, there's overhead squatting, there's zerker squatting, there's goblet squatting, there's bodyweight squatting, there's split squats, there's all sorts of variations. I'm not sure what this question is specifically referring to, but we'll discuss some of them quickly. So first of all, in my opinion, low bar back squats are the most useful variation for the vast majority of people. So young and old, whether you're a guy or girl, no matter what your goal is, you're going to be able to benefit from low bar back squats more than any of the other variations. And the reason for that is because you can lift more weight with low bar back squats than any of the other variations. The other variations are going to be sub-maximal lifts. So in other words, if you can squat 150 kilos with a high bar back squat, you could probably do 180 kilos potentially with a low bar back squat, and possibly more than that. But that gives you some idea of how much more you can lift with a low bar back squat. So you can see how that would benefit you if you're into sports, if you just happen to be an older person who's gotten a little bit weaker and you want to get stronger. The other reason that low bar back squat is beneficial for most people is because of where the bar is placed. So it is placed on across the shoulders, the back of the shoulders. the posterior deltoids, if we're being specific. So there's a little shelf. Once you pull your elbows back, squeeze your shoulder blades together, there's a little shelf and the bar will sit nicely on top of that. And whenever you get down into your squat, you're going to be able to get into a more comfortable position, keeping the bar through the center of your foot from the top of the squat to the bottom and back up again. And because it is sitting a little bit lower on your back, it means you can lean forward a little bit more from the waist. And this means you're going to put less pressure on your lumbar. Your lower back is not going to experience as much pressure because you're allowed to lean forward a little bit more. The other thing that's going on is the angle of your knees. Your knees typically will want to go forward. They'll want to go forward over your toes. Now, what this can typically do as well is if your torso is nice and upright, is your quads will get more pressure on them. The low bar back squat activates more musculature, so that is another reason why you can lift more doing a low bar back squat than any other variation. So I'm a big advocate of low bar back squatting. The other benefit is you can, depending on your shoulder mobility, you can generally get into the position just by sliding your hands a little bit wider. But it does challenge your shoulder mobility. It will improve your shoulder mobility if you keep working on it. So a lot of people have very tight shoulders, and I find actually after doing squats, they find it is their shoulders and from their chest and the back of their upper back that gets stretched and gets tight after doing back squats. Not their legs, their shoulders, believe it or not. So that hopefully clears up on the low bar back squat. For most people, I would recommend it, especially because you're going to get stronger than any other variation. The other reason is it's going to keep your knees a little bit safer, so it's going to put less pressure on the muscle on the quads, because you're spreading the weight through the posterior chain as well, your hamstrings and your glutes. Not only are you going to be able to lift more, you're going to put less pressure in your knees and your joints. So yeah, it's worth considering, worth doing that. High bar back squat, there's a case to be made for it, I guess, if you're doing more Olympic lifting. You need to have that upright torso and get this training, trying to get into that positioning. But same with the front squat, same with the overhead squat. Unless you're doing Olympic lifts, you're not going to benefit that much from those other type of lifts. If strength is your goal, low bar back squat is the way to go. Now, occasionally I will train some of my clients in front squats, in high bar back squats, Zercher squats, and the very odd occasion overhead squats. I generally start most people off just doing body weight squats and goblet squats to get the positions established, to make sure they've got all the basics and the principles laid down. They're able to keep their heels on the floor, spread the weight through the foot, keep the knees from caving in, getting depth established, all of those things. So that's why I will start with a goblet squat or a body weight squat, and then we'll start adding in with some variations like front squats, high bar back squats, Zercher squats, overhead squats now and then, but it's more of a supplement than I would say a staple. So low bar back squat should be a staple for pretty much everybody. And our next FAQ is, what is the difference between strength and power? So this is a really good question, and sometimes it gets confused. Sometimes the terms are used synonymously. We think they're both the same. They're actually not. So to go back to the old physics lessons in school, or maths lessons even sometimes, power equals force times velocity. So in other words, delivering a large amount of strength in a short space of time. Okay, so that's your definition of power, force times velocity. So there's speed involved in it. There's transferring strength in a very short space of time. Strength, on the other hand, time is almost irrelevant. As long as the weight moves in the right direction, it's irrelevant how long it takes to get there. And even if you do get the weight up quicker, it doesn't mean you're stronger necessarily. What will mean you're stronger is that if you're adding more weight to whatever you're lifting. So if it's a barbell, for example, it doesn't matter if it takes you 10 seconds to deadlift that barbell to the top. It is the application. So you're applying force to an external resistance. So as that external resistance increases, so in other words, putting more plates on the barbell, that means you're going to have to apply more force, so your strength has to go up. So if you are trying to improve strength and power, they do help each other, but they need to be trained separately. So they need to be trained independently. So in other words, strength is going to be a maximal loading, and power is going to be a sub-maximal loading at a faster speed. Okay, so cleans are a really good way to improve power. Power cleans. Power snatches, they're a really good way to improve power if you're interested in doing that for your sport, or if you're, I don't know what you're doing in life, but if you're trying to do things and increase power, that's a really good way to go. Things to avoid, I would say, are heavy, putting on a barbell on your back, like a back squat, and doing jumping squats. That's just, to me, it's idiotic, and I'm probably going to offend somebody's probably listening to this that's done that before or swears by it. But you imagine all that weight going through your spine, coming down on you. It's just asking for trouble. There's so many smarter ways to go about developing power. Now, power is measured a lot of the time by things like vertical jump. That is how a lot of scouts find their talent. They will go around schools, they'll go around colleges, and they'll be able to identify certain players who look like they're very, very powerful, and they'll measure the vertical jump. The vertical jump test is a really good way to find out who's got the talent and who doesn't. And a lot of it is genetically gifted. Power to a large extent, explosiveness to a large extent, is determined when you are in the womb. So the first few weeks, whenever you're in the womb, that is whenever things like that are determined. Believe it or not, it goes as far back as that. So blame your mum and dad if you're not very explosive or not very powerful. But everybody can train strength. Some people are going to be limited by the amount of power they've been blessed with, but everybody can get stronger, and you can increase power to a certain extent, but you will be able to increase strength to a larger degree. So hopefully that explains the difference between strength and power. It can be confusing. They're similar, but they are different. And now it's time for Joke of the Week. I feel like Bobby really put the pressure on me to up my game, so I'm going to give it my best shot. See what you think. Bit of a fun fact: did you know that Australia's biggest export is boomerangs? It also happens to be their biggest import. I promise I'll keep getting better. I'll try better ones. I like that. And that is us for another week. It's time to get out of here. Hopefully you've enjoyed this episode. Hopefully it has opened your eyes and maybe challenged you a little bit with regards to strength training and how you can benefit from it. No matter what you do in life, whether you sit at a desk, whether you play sport, whether you're getting on in years a little bit, whether your mobility has been reduced, strength training can solve an awful lot of problems. I think we've made that quite clear in this episode. If you have any questions, do send them in to info@crossfunctionalfitness.co.uk. I'd love to help you out. I'd love to get a chat with you. And until next week, have a good one.